Okay, hopefully this is going to be a quick video. It's just a short test. Just recapping on the findings of this fuel pressure problem. We had a blocked carburetor air filter that was creating an up and down undulating rev range at idle, and that coincided with the drop on the fuel pressure gauge. Now I thought the two were related. They weren't. So it's just on its own, it was a blocked carburetor air filter. The second problem was the fluid inside the fuel pressure gauge. So that fluid has to be drained for the fuel pressure gauge to work properly. If it's not drained, then what happens is, as the fluid in the fuel pressure gauge warms up, the fuel pressure drops in the gauge, but not in the fuel line. However, that didn't fix it. We still have air getting in the fuel line. Before I drop the tank, I'm going to do one more test. What I'll do is I'll relocate the fuel filter just here into this area on top of the engine. And with the last test, we can see that the fuel line wasn't connected anywhere. It just went on the ground, and there was some movement, and I'm just thinking that there was less power at the fuel pump because of the movement of the fuel line. Okay, so here we are. There's the tank just there. So what happened with the last test is this section from here to here, and this runs down to the fuel pump. This section, it stopped supplying fuel into the fuel line toward the end of the last video. I'm thinking that this filter could be affecting the fuel pump. I know that this is a pulling pump, not a pushing pump. So a pushing pump would be in the tank, an electric pump. So I'm going to relocate that on top of the engine and put this line hard up against the frame so that won't move. This line will go just here, so we won't have this clear tube, but that'll rule something out of the test, so I'll get that set up now. Okay, well the mock-up work is done now, and it did take a fair amount of time. Not so much important, but one thing that I found during doing this work was a very strong siphoning effect in the fuel line from the tank. So I was connecting up the fuel line, and there was, the siphoning effect. That's what we used to use to get fuel out of the fuel tanks. So you just suck some fuel into the line, you drop it down further with your thumb over the end, and with the siphoning effect it would continue to under its own power go out of the tank. But so that hints at there being good connection between the fuel line and the tank, so that's good. Okay, so there it is. We've got the line going straight to the tank, and that goes across the frame and along. At this stage I'll just say that if there's no air getting into the line, then the line to the tank is good, and we'll call it a fix. If not, I have to drop the tanks. If I do have to drop the tanks, I'd say that it's the net over the end of the drop-in metal line going into the tank. The net could be slightly clogged, and in time the net's drawing in toward the metal line and restricting the fuel flow. But I don't think so somehow. It's all metal, it's a metal line. It's not going to crack or anything. Can't be damaged around the tank area. And just generally, my experience of inside fuel tanks, they're usually clean. So okay, so then it comes along and connects to the fuel pump there. The only thing that's not standard with this test is the way that the fuel line comes around, but it's held in place there and at the fuel pump, so there'd be very small amount of movement. Obviously, if this test fixes the problem, or we can see that all I need to do is renew the fuel line, I'm not going to keep this food grade fuel line, and it'll be replaced with either just the standard rubber fuel line or the more expensive see-through line. So that's the see-through fuel line. With this test I won't be running a camera, I'll just start it up and just keep you informed. I've got a clock up the back of the shed there, and I'll just put a yellow sticker where I start, and that way we can gauge how long the engine's been running. Another thing to say about this test is, if it works and it's successful, there's no air getting into the line and the pump's pulling fuel from the fuel tank, what that would probably mean is this fuel filter being placed behind the fuel pump was restricting the flow, whereas here it's being pushed through the line, and so it would that would be important where the fuel filter was placed. You might say, well, mechanical fuel pumps probably don't have the or are able to develop the pressure they should be able to, but you know, what's the alternative? Put on an electric fuel pump. Well, they're as loud, you know, you wouldn't believe how loud they are. You know, you start putting them in the fuel tank, well, you're looking at $1,000s. So I think I'm just about ready to get out of fuel pump type motors or engines, beg your pardon. And I think probably the best vehicle, best engine you can get is the early days of fuel injection. But anyway, let's get this test going. If you are running fuel line or renewing fuel line, start from the carburetor to the fuel pump and then to the fuel tank. Otherwise, if you connect at the fuel tank, you can get a siphoning effect going, and it spills on the ground and not good. So okay, well, I've just got her to idle, so let's have a look. Okay, it's less than 5 minutes, so we'll give it some time and see how it goes. Okay, it's been more than 10 minutes, say 12 minutes, and let's have a look. If this test is successful, then it's the first test that's gone the full 20 minutes with no problems, so we'd be able to call this the fix. So it would have been the loose fuel hose bypassing the metal line and where the fuel filter is. So let's have a look. Okay, yeah, so that's about, let's see, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, we'll have another look when she's been running for about 20 minutes. Okay, well, she's been running for 40 minutes, and it's that close to being a successful test. It's not funny. However, it looks like the type of fuel line I'm using may have ruptured or deformed inside, because it's like a sleeve within a sleeve. However, there is no air in the line, so that could just be due to the type of hose I'm using. So that's how long it's been running for, about 40 minutes. Okay, so let's have a look at the fuel line. Okay, well, as time goes on, we can see a little bit of air in the line. However, it's different to the last test in that at the tank there's no air getting into the line, so the tank's supplying the line. The line's one piece. It's just a little bit of air activity near the fuel pump, and there is a slight fuel pressure drop at the fuel pressure gauge. So it's a drop of about 2 or 3, I'd say 2 psi. Temperature's very good. It's at 70 degrees. When I shut her off, the fuel pressure dropped and is dropping. That's probably a normal thing. The next move is to get clear fuel line, proper fuel grade line or hose. I'll install that and we'll see what happens. That will take some time. So, okay, over and out for now.